I want to talk about personal responsibility. This is the mode that works. It's all about personal responsibility. In this mode, when you come to something you don't know how to do, you accept responsibility for it anyway, and you don't surrender that responsibility over to anyone else. Now, we are talking about education here. We're talking about the raising of your children until they're old enough to know what they want to do with their lives. And in the case of wanting to follow a vocation that requires higher education, they have the right to surrender to higher learning if they want to. But should you be doing that for them while they are growing up? Because like I said earlier about gaps, something is being left out of the equation, and that is their character formation, the development of the learning tools, their love of learning. There's so many things, the relationship with the family. There's so many things that are under attack through the faulty mode of learning, where you are surrendering your children to experts to tell you what your children need, when they need it, and how fast they should get through it. You see? Because that is what the public school system does. They also tell you when you can take a day off. They run your life, and you see that, right? So when you're in the personal responsibility, embracing that mode of learning and education, you firmly grasp the challenge, the problem or the task at hand, and you own it for yourself, even if you don't have a clue about how to do it. And this is why so many people put their kids back in school or sign up with some other program to help them because they don't know what to do. And so they relinquish personal responsibility, thinking there's no other way, not realizing that God wants to help them, God wants to parent them. You see, dear hearts, you know this, right? You see this. God wants to help you. He wants to parent you, teach you how to parent your children for Him. When you take personal responsibility, use a learning process and discipling process, and you have the right to command and act and decide what gaps are going to be okay and which ones don't matter to you and which ones do matter to you, okay? And so you decide, you have this commitment that somehow you have to get it done no matter how scary that may feel. You make a commitment with the Lord toward personal responsibility. Now, to many people, that expertise mode seems right. It's a mode of choice in the school systems most of us came through. It's even the basis for much of the higher education provided in this country. And in those places, outside sources decide what we need to know. Then they persuade us through advertising and common cultural understandings, or they compel us through compulsory education laws to come to them so they can pour the knowledge into us. And then they give us a diploma that certifies we now know those things, and off we go. And in this way, the expertise mode gains an appearance of being an effective learning mode, but in truth lacks the substance needed for character formation and a lot of other things. Most people don't realize that the expertise mode actually violates a key principle, and anytime that happens, the desired results will not be forthcoming. No, they won't. It will be very weak indeed. Broken principles mean broken systems, regardless of appearances or of public opinion. Okay? Broken principles. What is this broken principle? Relationship. The relationship and owning personal responsibility. And so we understand principles to mean the way that God shaped reality to work. In God's supreme wisdom, he designed what he made to work in certain ways. And if we honor those principles in what we do, things work right. If we disregard those principles, and then we end up suffering the consequences. And it would be the same as trying to ignore the law of gravity in the physical realm with the same devastating results, you know? So God designed this learning process to work in a certain way too, and it was never meant to be passive, as in the expertise mode compels us to be. It compels us, the student, to be passive. Only as we actively relate to our own learning, taking full responsibility for it and directing it ourselves, will real learning take place. There's no passive, empty container understanding of education. And it can't possibly succeed because it violates the way God set up true education to work. So whether we passively submit to such a system or voluntarily identify with it, believing ourselves to actually be incompetent, empty containers that need to be filled, makes no difference.